All right. So, can you still hear me, Sophia?
Yes, sir.
All right. Awesome. So, for the overview today, we're going to have some program manager notes from Ms. Sweeney. Please make sure that your phones are on mute. We're going to go over some policy changes, MOA changes, and new requirements. We have created a certificate of completion template for you that we want to go over with you. We're going to hit the itemized price quotes, talk about the 90-day shuffle a little bit that some of you have been going through with us here lately, go over some FAQs, give you a chance to ask some questions, and then we're going to hit the recap. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Sophia Sweeney.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Hope you all are doing great. And we'll go ahead and go on to the next slide, please. Okay, real quick, I just want to talk about a few things that have been coming up lately, and hopefully we can get some, this is your time for questions and so forth. So really appreciate, before we start, really appreciate Russell, Mr. Gray, putting this together for everyone. And I know he's got some more upcoming vendor sessions, so this is a great opportunity for you all to, really gather all your questions for these sessions. But all right, really quick, just want to talk about some custom CA requests. I know there's some confusion with custom requests, and I just want to let you know that SODRs, I know what you all put in the system, and that's absolutely fine. But SODRs are able to create custom requests, but the quotes still must match what they're listing in the Army Ignited system. So if a SODR, and I'm just going to use aviation as an example, let's say, the vendor has listed a course that has 20 hours of flight time, but the SODR really only needs 10 hours of flight time. It's important that they create a custom request, because what happens is we're asked if money can be returned and so forth, and we want to kind of avoid that, because that's not just a quick and easy, okay, just turn it right back in. That takes some steps. So we ask that if a SODR is asking or needs only so many hours, 10 hours, whatever, that you create a custom request for them, and they can create their CA request based off of what you have provided, okay? And I know there was the update to the policy. So that policy, this is where it's a good time. And I know previously we talked about, not changing what was listed, and we still don't want to change anything that's listed, because there's still National Guard and reservists that can participate in or request aviation credentials at full price. But for those SODRs that are active duty that cannot request full price, this can be an opportunity where you can update your application, but instead of putting things in phases, you would have to break them down farther. Again, that's only if you wish to do that. If not, then, and I know we're going to talk about quotes here shortly, but those can be adjusted. You're still it'll still exactly match what's in Army Ignited, but you can add the reduction, or I'm sorry, the discount at the bottom. But we'll go through that when Mr. Gray goes through it. So the withdrawal process. There is a process for this withdrawal. They cannot, per policy and per the statement of understanding that they sign, they are told they cannot withdraw with the vendor. Okay, this is a huge deal lately, where SODRs are just contacting the vendors and just withdrawing. And then they go into the Army Ignited system and withdraw the wrong way, right? So that's an absolute no-go. So we ask that if a SODR says, hey, I want to withdraw from this course, that you automatically send them back to Army Ignited, or you ask them to submit a SNOW ticket, right? The Service Now ticket, that's where everyone has this in their account, to include you all. You should be able to go up to the support tab up top If you click on that support tab, there is an option to create a new case. That is where they would go to request any questions. But if they wanted to withdraw from their course, they have to do it within their own CA request. Okay, so if you just send them back to their account and tell them that you cannot, you can't assist them with that withdrawal. It has to be done in the system first. That would be great. Refunds. Oftentimes, out of the blue, the finance team will receive a refund. No clue where it comes from, or maybe there's a name attached to it, but we don't know who it's for. Please don't send refunds unless we request those refunds. The only people that are going to request it is just from our team. Outside of that, please do not send a refund until we request it. And another thing, and this is also huge. This is part of the MOA that all vendors sign. It's also things that the SODRs know or have in their policy. Funds are never to be returned to the SODRs. Never. Okay. And we've run into this situation before where the SODR received the funds back, and we had to tell the SODR turn those back into the vendor. That we cannot do that. That is absolutely a violation. And if you violate that policy, we will remove you from the approved vendor list. Okay. If ever you have questions about what you should do, then please feel free to ask those questions, but please don't send money back. And then the other thing is, please notify the rest of your staff of the same thing. Okay. This, I guess apparently one of the personnel that was returning the funds didn't know about the CA program and thought it was okay to do that. So I ask that if you're participating in the CA program, that everyone that you work with that's going to deal with a SODR for credentialing assistance knows about the process as well, please. We also have training and exams in the system that vendors have added into their applications. Just want to make sure you all know and understand that we cannot just add books or materials alone because there's no way to capture their completion, right? Everything must be with a training or an exam. Now, if the books and materials come with a practice test, something to that effect, that's fine. We can look at that and see if that will be sufficient to add alone with those books and materials. But if it does not include a training or exam, it must be removed, okay? So I know that there are a couple of vendors out there that have just strictly materials and books. So please go back in your applications and look at that. And we need to add a training to that or remove those items. Okay, and another question that's always come up is how long or can the SODR be extended and so forth. But SODRs only have 1 calendar year per policy, 1 calendar year from their start date. So if they ask for a start date of today, then they only have, I'm sorry? No, Miss Elsa, I'm gonna put you on mute. No, I cannot. You just muted yourself. Good. Thank you. 1 calendar. So if somebody requested something for today on the 13th, they have until, if they request, up until 12 August of next year. Just know that that's not an automatic thing. The SODR must request that time frame. We only go off of what the SODR requests, right? So the end date is what we're looking at. If they picked a date like today and their end date is tomorrow, but you thought, well, this course actually takes a year, it doesn't matter. After tomorrow's end date, within 10 days, we're expecting a certificate of completion from that SODR, or they will be recouped. So we ask that you please, you can ask the question to the SODR, what is your start and end date? Or you give them a start and end date, but it cannot exceed 1 calendar year. And so we've been asked questions like, hey, can this person extend longer? And the answer is, if it goes past 1 calendar year, the answer is no, okay? And then that soldier will be recouped if they didn't finish within that time frame. Flyers, I ask, please follow the DoD guidance that we have sent. Mr. Gray sends out every single time the guidance on seals, logos, and all that stuff. When we find, there are times we find that a vendor has added a flyer and they mention things that are not true, or they call it the Army Cool program, or they put information out there that's just, not acceptable. We will let you know and we'll have you remove that until it is corrected, okay? And there is a big difference between the Credentialing Assistance Program and Army Cool program. So please know that Army Cool is where all of the credentials are found. The credentialing agencies, the credentials, the information, that's in Army Cool. But the difference is all of the funding for the Credentialing Assistance Program comes from Army Ignited, okay, or goes through Army Ignited. So please don't call it the Army Cool program, because it is the Army Credentialing Assistance Program. If we find those types of errors on your sites or reported, we will ask you to remove those. And no third-party quotes, please. We understand that some vendors have a third-party teaching, and that's fine. That's between you and them. But if you are the vendor, we're only talking to you, and we're only going to receive quotes from you. So I'll use CTC, for example. If CTC hires a different vendor to teach a course, that's fine. When we see that request, the quote must come from CTC, right? If it comes from another vendor, we're going to reject it. It has to come from the vendor that is part of the Credentialing Assistance Program. So I hope that made sense. Please feel free to ask questions if you need to, and you can raise your hand, or you can put it in the chat. Next slide, please. And just like I was talking about earlier, discounts, we have no problem with discounts, but the quote still must match what is listed in Army Ignited. Okay, so if in Army Ignited, the total price is $2,000, but you wanted to give a $500 discount, that's absolutely fine. As long as everything else matches, after the bottom of the total price, you can add, discount of $500. And that is acceptable, as long as the rest of the items match what is listed in Army Ignited. Extensions can only be requested by soldiers. It cannot be requested by a vendor or a counselor from the education center. It must come from the soldier. So if you're asking for an extension for a soldier, the answer is going to be have the soldier submit their snow ticket to request that extension. And what's the reason for that? Well, the reason for that is when we've done this program now and learned quite a bit of, best practices, right? We have done before where a counselor would ask for an extension, we'd grant the extension. But then after the time was up, soldier would come back and say, hey, I never authorized that. I'm not going to be recouped because I didn't tell that person to do it. They did it on their own. And then there was no proof to do that. So we will only accept any type of extension request from the soldier alone, okay? Installation access, this is another issue that we've seen. Please do not enter an installation without the approval from that education services officer. That process must go through them for you to even go on the installation to discuss your program. If you're a retiree, you have an ID card, you have a pass, whatever the case, you can absolutely go on the installation. Nobody can tell you you can't. However, if you are going to talk about your program, you must have approval. No one can teach on that installation either as a vendor unless there is a memorandum of understanding in place through that education services officer, who will also take that to the DHR, their supervisors and so forth. That is a process. You cannot just come onto the installation and teach there. Okay, that is a process. Okay, before I hand it back over, I wanted to make sure I introduced the CA team because we often, forget to say thanks to our team. But first, I have Steve Clare. He is our boss. He's on the line. I'm pretty sure I saw him on there. Steve, did you want to say anything? I just put him on the spot.
No, sorry. I didn't know if you wanted me to say good morning. But good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. I know the team has developed some great training material and some great information to put out for you to make this program even more successful than it has been. So thanks for joining. Keep up the great work. Thanks.
And then, of course, there's myself. You already know who I am, Sophia Sweeney. And then you have Mr. Russell Gray and Miss Wendy Sanders. They are the team for all the vendor application reviews. So they've been working really hard to make sure all of your requests and applications are being knocked out. So thank you, team. Then there are the CA processors, although Miss Dottie Heffelfinger, she also assists with the applications, but Dottie and then Chris Fowler and Kristen Clark all work the processing of the cases when we receive them from the soldiers. They process hundreds and hundreds, well, at least over, I don't know, between 150 cases to 200 a day. So they're hardworking behind the scenes, but they are by no means, doing nothing. They're awesome. They're outstanding. And then we have our finance team, Mr. Ridge Cadwell, Ms. Tisha Gentry, LaDonna Hazelwood, Emily Pitts, and Amanda Shrimsher. You obviously know their names quite well. But those are the finance teams. And again, they are doing great as well. They are getting to all of these cases before the start date. Some, depending on what the situation is, can be up to the start date, but that's okay. They're making those payments and making it happen for the soldier. And the last but not least, I want to make sure I introduce Ms. Christine Loving. She is the Army Corps Program Manager. And so all of the stuff that happens on Army Corps, she is the one, her and her team, the whole team, take care of all of that stuff in there. So Christine, did you want to say anything?
Hi, good morning. I just want to introduce myself. We work on the data that's in Army Cool, and we make sure all of the credentials, federal licenses, national exams are updated so that the information can be sent into Army Ignited to be requested by soldiers. And when the Army Cool contacts come in via the website, it's me and my team who answer those. So if you've sent in a contact and had a response, that likely came from me. So happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you so much, Christine. Anyone else on the team want to say anything before I turn it back over to Russell? Okay. Well, Russell, thank you very much for your time. And I'm turning it right back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, everybody, for your introductions and letting everyone know what this awesome team does. And again, thank each and every one of you for being a part of what we're doing, because without you, we couldn't provide the great resources to the soldiers. So thank you to each one of you as well. All right, here. So, over the last few months or so, we've had a lot of concerns that have come out from the field regarding the certificate of completion. What needs to be on it, how it's supposed to look, what does it offer. So what we did is we went and we created a certificate of completion template that you're more than welcome to use. Now, if you already have one for your institution and you're good with that one and it meets all the requirements of this form that we have here, perfect. However, if you're in a position where, well, we're really not sure about what our certificate of completion needs to look like, we will be sending this out to all of our vendors for you to be able to utilize. And of course, that certificate of completion needs to have the soldier's name, the course or exam name that that soldier is requesting or took with you, the course start date and end date, the vendor name, the completion status, either if they passed or they failed, the signature from the vendor, and the date that they're signing. That way, when we get this information back in, we can update the soldiers' records accordingly and make sure that the information is put in there correctly. This certificate of completion gives us a chance to have standardization across the board for what we're putting into the system for all of our soldiers. Again, it is an option for vendors without templates. So if you already have one, you're more than welcome to continue using it as long as it meets this requirement. Otherwise, you're more than welcome to jump in and grab this one. Ensures all of the Army CA requirements are filled out. So, like I said, all those items that we have listed there, we make sure that you hit all those high points and we know that who it goes to, what they took, when they completed it, who they took it through, if they passed or failed, and the date that they completed it. So, again, this is a great resource that we've created for you. We will be sending this out to you via email at the end of our training. That way, each and every one of you will have a copy of this. And any questions there before I go on to the price quote? All right. Same thing.
Russell, we have a question in the chat box.
Okay.
Is there a specific person that will sign the certificate of completion?
So good question. So if you are a vendor that's offering training, say you're the training instructor for that, if that's the person that your institution or your organization authorizes to sign, if that member has completed that training, that they verify that they've completed it, that's perfectly fine. It doesn't have to be the POC that's listed in your application. It can be the person that you've directed to offer that training.
Russell, we have another question.
Okay, go ahead.
It says, we offer courses through a third-party vendor. Does the Army need to know the third-party vendor name or only our name as the provider?
So we need to know your name as the provider, and the certificate of completion should come from you, that that member has completed that course. Anything else out there, Wendy?
No, I think we're good for now. Thanks, Russell.
All right, so we're going to jump over from there and talk about your itemized price quote. And this is a big item when it comes to making sure your application and the price quote match each other. There are 6 key components on that itemized price quote that you have to identify. First being your company's name and address. The second is the date of the course or exam that the soldier is pursuing. The third is the soldier's name that's requesting it. The fourth is what training is being provided. The fifth item is the itemized everything provided. And again, this here must match what's on the Army Ignited application. So if you're offering a training bundle that has books and it has study material and it has an exam voucher and it has a practice test, all of those items have to be identified on your Army Ignited application, and then they have to be itemized on here as well. Now, like Sophia said, if for some reason you offer a discount and you say, hey, for service members, we offer a 10% discount, make sure that's put at the bottom of your itemized price quote there. That way, when our finance team gets it and they call you, they can adjust the price there accordingly. But the price on your itemized price quote should match what you have in Army Ignited for when you go down to item 6. The total cost matches everything that's already listed on your application.
Russell, we have a few hands up, and also your sound is coming in a little bit fuzzy. It's a little bit wonky. So we have Mr. Bauer has his hand up.
Yeah, I was just question was asked about third-party training vendors. Are we able to do that? Because I have some training that have some additional training that could be given by third parties, and I removed it from the training that I've brought up so far. But I didn't think we could do that.
So I can answer that really quick, Russell. So as far as third party, if you hire a third party vendor to provide your training, that's between you and them. However, when it comes to receiving a quote, making payments, certificates of completion, that only goes to you. We will not talk to that third party vendor. Does that make sense, Mr. Bauer?
Absolutely. Thank you.
No problem.
Russell, we have a couple other questions. Are you ready? Maybe he's fixing his microphone.
I'll go ahead and answer those while he's fixing
Sure.
his.
Is it possible to send all completers to you via a report instead of individual certificates?
So each soldier has to have their own certificate of completion. So I'd ask that it not come through a report, but they all have different end dates. Some of them will have different end dates. So we ask that they each get their own certificate of completion. Eventually, when it's built in the system to where you can upload your own certificate of completions, it'll be, you'll be able to do it on your own without having to provide that. But until that time, we ask that you create separate certificates of completion and then CCS. And then Annette.
You see the last one? Yeah.
Can we add new courses at this time? And Russell, are you still on? Or
yeah. Can you guys hear me?
You can go ahead and take that one, the new courses.
Okay, and thank you. And that's actually in one of our items listed below, Miss Annette. So I'll save that one because that's actually going to be on the next slide here that we hit. See, I made the slide just for you. We had it ready for you. All right, so everybody, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Sound good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So as you know, our annual reviews are complete every January, February timeframe. Requests to make changes to the application must be submitted directly to us. Now, if you're looking to make a change to your application and increase the price of something you offer, it has to have at least a 90-day wait time from implementation before you can start putting that on the soldier's itemized price quote. However, if you are decreasing the price or adding an item, you do not have to wait that 90 days to implement. So I just want that to be clear to everybody here. If you're changing the price of something that's already on there, you have to wait 90 days. But if you're decreasing the price or adding new items, you do not have to wait that 90 days. I know that was a big thing that had been asked here as of recent, so we want to make sure that that was captured on this training. And of course, changes that are made without approval from Army CA will be disapproved. So if you haven't sent us an email and said, we'd like to make these changes to our application, and then received an email back from either myself or Ms. Sanders saying, yes, you're good to go ahead and make your changes, those will be disapproved and sent back to you. Okay? Did that answer your question, Ms. Annette?
Yes, it did.
All right, outstanding. Next couple slides, we are actually going to go over the top 15 most frequently asked questions for Army CA from our vendors. And we want to make sure that we identify some of these. And then, like I said, at the end, we wanted to give each and every one of you a time if you had extra questions or you had things that you were concerned about. We wanted to make sure that we allotted enough time during this training for you guys to be able to come in and ask those questions. So I'll go ahead and get started with the top 15. Number one, I have a TA account. Why can't I access the CA side? So as it says there, each section of voluntary education has a separate account feature. Even though we're all included in the Army Ignited platform, each different section, TA, CA, the civilian side, each of it has its own separate section. So you would have to create a separate account for each one that you need to be able to access. After the annual review, number two, after the annual review, can I add more items or change costs? Like we just said in the last slide, you're more than welcome to make those changes after you contact us and ask to be able to make those changes. If you are adding items or you're decreasing the price, you don't have to wait that 90 days. But if you are changing the price to something that's already listed on the site, you have to wait at least 90 days after implementation to put that on the soldier's itemized price quote. Number three, I was told that CA for aircraft certifications has changed. Is this true? So, as per our senior leader recommendations that were sent out to each and every one of our vendors as they came about, all active duty soldiers are currently allotted $1,000 for cost toward aviation credentials. Our Army National Guard and Reserve members are still eligible to receive the full $4,000. So, make sure when you're asking if a soldier's contacting you and they're asking about that, make sure you ask them, one, are you active duty or are you Guard or Reserve? And two, if they are active duty, you have to make sure and provide proof that they've acknowledged that they're willing to pay the difference on their own.
We have a couple more questions, Russell, when you have a chance. Are you there, Russell?
Yeah, can you hear me?
No, I can hear. You're very, very, very quiet. I can barely hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to go straight through my computer instead of using this headset. All right, so as far as for exam vouchers and training bundles, and I'll get to those questions here in just a second, Wendy. You can only have one exam voucher or credential listed with a training bundle. So we see this with a lot of our IT certifications, for especially like CompTIA, where you'll have Network Plus, Security Plus, and a couple others bundled together, and then you'll have all of the exams and everything listed. That's a no-go. If all of the trainings are included together, that's fine. However, there can only be one exam voucher and one credential associated with that training bundle. So if that bundle says we're offering Security Plus, Network Plus, etc. as training, it can only have an exam voucher for Security Plus, and then or whichever one you want to put on there. And then all the other exam vouchers can be listed separately. That way the soldiers can pull them ad hoc and add them to what comes on their itemized price quote. Same thing for credentials. Only one credential can be listed on there. So again, that Security Plus would be that one credential, or the Network Plus. You can't have multiple credentials stacked together. So make sure that if you're doing that, and if you're putting an exam voucher on your training bundle, make sure that exam voucher is listed at $0.00. And anything else that's provided by you in that training bundle should also be listed at $0.00. If it's not provided by you and it's not an exam, say you offer a training bundle, but within this, the member is required to have an admin fee or something that's not provided within the training bundle. You can put that down as no, not provided by you, and put the cost as long as it is not an exam voucher. Wendy, I'll go ahead and answer those questions real quick before I go to the next slide.
Sure. If Kathy, Miss Yale says, if the price is increased and is approved, the soldiers will see the new price as soon as it's approved. Yet we have to wait 90 days before we can quote the new price. This means that our quote will not match what the soldiers see in Ignited. Will soldiers' requests then be rejected?
So when the soldier sees a request come in the system and they see the costs have changed, I would recommend putting on the itemized price quote that the cost that they're seeing there is reflected off of what was there prior to the change. That way the soldier doesn't submit for something that gets rejected. And I know it's kind of wonky in the system right now where it shows it automatically with the update, and we're working on that, trying to get that adjusted. But just for now, put it in there, put it on your price quote. This cost is reflected uh, prior to the 90-day change. That way, when our CA team gets it and sends it over to finance, they know that that one shouldn't be rejected and it's at the cost that it should be before the change is made. I know that's a little difficult right now, but again, we're working with the system. We're trying to get it updated. But for now, this is an internal fix for us to be able to get that taken care of.
We have a couple more, Russell, if you're ready to field questions. Are you good?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Ms. Williams says, what if the cost covers all exams cited within the associated course? Please advise.
So again, you can put one exam voucher on there, and then you can list the other items separately. Uh, that way the soldiers can grab them ad hoc. But only one exam voucher can be listed on a training bundle.
And then one more from Mr. Downs. Well, people keep adding them. As I say the questions, then people have more questions. Mr. Downs says, one challenge we have with matching quote to the data in Ignited is shipping and handling of materials. That cost varies based on the location of the service member. Any advice on best practices to handle that? Does that make sense, Russell?
Yeah,
Yes,
actually,
there's something in there.
yep. And I was actually going to address this one as well. The shipping and handling, yeah, we know that's going to be adjusted. My question to you, Mr. Downs, is that added in your application?
I'll just turn off my mic if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So we when we did the update, we added that into the courses where we have physical materials that we send out.
Mhm.
And then we just put it in at a sort of a stock fee. Most of the time it's less than what we put in,
Mhm.
right? Because we didn't want to, I think we put, I think it was $100 that we put as a shipping and handling cost, just because we wanted to make sure we put in an amount that was going to cover pretty much everyone,
Right.
but we don't, but it's also, most of the time it's not that much, but we didn't want to go over and have the
Sure.
service member be hurt. So that's however we could best manage that would be great.
Okay, so actually, I see LaDonna Hazelwood's online. I know she deals with she's finance, so I just want to make sure I know she's dealt with this already. So LaDonna, can you answer that question? How you adjust it in the system?
Good morning. So what we do with finance, once it comes over to us, if we have to adjust the shipping or any kind of cost like that, then we'll just go in, we notify the service member, tell him that we're adjusting his costs. It's either went up or if it's gone down, and then we adjust it in Army Ignited itself, the price after we pay for it.
Right.
Okay.
So does that?
Yeah. So when we list it into Ignited, should we just have shipping and handling, but just leave it at 0, and then it would be adjusted during the approval process? That way, I mean, it's probably a rare situation, but if that $100 that we have listed takes them over what their remaining dollars might be, right? They might go, oh, well, I'm not going to do this course, right? Because that's going to be too much. It'll put me over my cap. But maybe it's only $10, right? So should we just leave it as 0 and then it gets adjusted? Should we leave it as a higher amount and it's just down? Which one do you prefer?
I do not put it as a 0 cost,
Okay.
because if you do that, then we're expecting you to pay for that shipping
Gotcha.
cost. So I would recommend that you add the roundabout cost, and if it does get adjusted, then it gets adjusted, right?
Okay.
So, and then of course the finance, or like LaDonna, they are not going to go over that soldier's amount.
Correct.
Great. Okay. So we'll just kind of keep with doing what we're doing then, I think.
Right.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, LaDonna.
You're welcome.
Do we have any more questions there? We good for right now, Wendy?
They just keep coming and coming. Okay, so the next one is from Mr. Bauer. Will you send out the itemized template, and should we change our current tuition letter to meet this template?
I can send out the template. What do you mean as far as changing your current tuition letter?
Okay, so we currently, and I actually manage multiple different vendors. So we each have a letter that specifically states their name, their start date, and the cost of the course that matches what we have listed in Army Ignited. However, that doesn't have an itemized. It just has the overall course, which we only charge an overall. So what I suggest to my vendors or my clients is that there's a standard cost and everything else is listed at zero. So do we need to add those itemized things on the tuition letter? Should we change the tuition letter, our pre-enrollment letter to meet this itemized template, or is it okay just to list, certified manager's course at 2,700 or?
Good question. So when you submit that itemized price quote, it should have the cost of the course, and then each thing in there, like if it has books, how much those books cost, how much the pre-exam cost, the fees, and then everything at the bottom should total what you have in Army Ignited for the total cost. Does that make sense?
Even though we, like I said, for simplification, we have the overall cost and then everything is wrapped into that cost. We don't have separate itemized costs. Like we don't charge separate for the books or separate for this.
Yeah, we need it to be itemized.
And matching what we have in the Army Ignited application.
Correct.
Okay, we'll make those changes.
Thank you, sir.
We have a few more. Ms. Wilson says, when we send out the certificate of completion, do we upload on Army Ignited, or who do we email the certificate to?
So the certificate of completion needs to be sent to the soldier, but we greatly appreciate that you courtesy copy us on it too. That way, if for some reason the soldier has an issue getting it uploaded, we have it as well, and you'll see the email address that you can send it to on the last slide. But send it to us as well. That way, if we see it, we can go ahead and upload it in the soldier's folder and make sure that they can get closed out. But definitely, first and foremost, it goes directly to the soldier. Take two more there, Wendy, and I'll keep rolling. We'll hold the rest for a little bit.
I think we're good.
Okay.
Yeah, and Russell, real quick, this is a continued question that keeps coming up regarding the specific timelines, and I'm just going to address it out here because others might have the same question. We asked for the course start date. We have a broad range of start and end dates for on-demand courses. And can we use a date range? And I'm gonna tell you that a date range is fine if you don't have the start and end date on your quote. That's okay, but it is important to have that date range. And the reason we do that is because it could your prices might change. So let's just say you had to increase due to whatever mandates and asked you or made you request or update your price or increase your price. If you gave a soldier a certain quote and that was like hundreds of dollars less than what it is now, you have to honor what you added in that quote. So if you give that time frame and that date range, that helps you out as well, because we've already had this situation where the soldier says, no, the vendor gave me this is my quote. And so it is important that you put a date range. They can come back and ask you for a new one if they haven't taken it in a year or submitted that, but some have submitted quotes that were like over a year old. So I hope that helps with that. Okay, back to you, Russell, sorry.
No problem. Thank you so much for helping me answer some of those with you and Wendy. I greatly appreciate it. All right. So, question 5. Can soldiers request CA funding before my MOA is approved? A signed memorandum of agreement or MOA must be submitted and approved prior to submitting your application in Army Ignited. So before a soldier ever even sees that your account is active, we have to make sure that one, you have an approved MOA on file, and two, that your application has been approved. When that occurs, we will send you an approval email with a copy of your signed MOA with it, signed by both you and the Department of the Army, and then your information will be available for soldiers to see. So they will not be able to submit anything for funding until we have that MOA on file. Number 6, we had an employee change on our account. How do we update this? So there's two ways this is going to be updated. One, you as the vendor need to go into your application. If that member was the main POC or was the finance POC or alternate POC, you as the vendor will go into the account and update that. Two, if the vendor, if the individual is new to your business and doesn't already have an account, they need to go through the ServiceNow portal and request the roles request. We will then tie that member to the new account, and then they can start making changes to the application. So make sure that they request the roles request, and we can tie their account to the main vendor account in the system. And we'll also update that individual's name on the approved vendor list that goes out each month. That way it's updated. And those are updated at the beginning of every month. So just so you know, if you send us something now, it's not going to show reflected on the vendor list, the approved vendor list, until the September update. Number 7. I am retired military. Am I okay to go on post and talk about the training I offer? Ms. Sweeney talked about this a little bit. You're more than welcome to go on base as much as you want, on post as much as you want. However, if you were going to talk about your business or you're going to talk about what you offer or offer a course or offer training, you have to, one, be an approved vendor, two, get access to the installation through the education office there on post, and make sure that you've checked off all those boxes and you are okay to go on the installation to talk about what you offer. Any other reason? I mean, if you're going on post to go to the BX or something, that's your business. But if you're going to talk about something that deals with CA or training, make sure you have that installation access granted first. Number 8, how long does the approval process take? So we go into the system and approve the pending every single day. Matter of fact, multiple times a day because it actually pops in and out throughout the day. So when you're creating your account in Army Ignited, that doesn't mean that you're done by itself. You still have to submit your application and your MOA to us. So if you haven't done the application part and sent the MOA, then you are not done with creating your account and make sure everything is good to go. One, make sure that account is created, which we're actually helping you guys out with that now. When we send you out the invites, or we send future vendors invites to welcome them, we're going in the system and going ahead and creating an account for them. That way, when they go and they request the role in the system, we can already link them together and then they can start on their application. So we're doing that internally to help you as vendors out. Number 9, are there local post representatives that can make my process go faster? Anything dealing with Army CA needs to come to the Army Access Team only. The base education officer, the soldier, they cannot make your process go any faster. The ones who deal with the process are the team that Miss Sweeney identified to you earlier. That's it. Myself, Wendy, we're your vendor relations specialists. So if you have direct questions that pertain to being a vendor, shoot those to us. Otherwise, you can shoot the email to the main organizational box, but anything else, the post representatives are not authorized to take care of for you. Number 10, do we have to submit a certificate of completion? If so, who do we send it to? Again, we've gone over that template. Yes, you have to submit a certificate of completion. It is a part of the MOA agreement that you will submit a certificate of completion, and you can send those certificates of completion to the soldier. And again, please courtesy copy us on it so we can make sure that it's put into the system if the soldier hasn't already done so. Number 11, if I am a vendor for the Army CA program, does that mean I am on the other services as well? No, Army CA is for Army personnel specifically. If you're looking to be a part of the other cool programs out there outside of Army CA, there's a link right there, www.cool.osd.mil. It'll actually take you to the main OSD portal for all of the credentialing pages. Then you can click on that individual service and contact them respectively. Number 12, can I just find a credential that I think relates to the training we offer? So before you can put a training onto your application, it has to be related to a credential that is on the Army Cool website. You can go to the Army Cool website and it has a search feature. You can look and make sure that that credential relates. Do not just select a credential that you think, well, maybe this might match up and this is the closest thing to what we offer. If it's not directly related to that credential and to the obtainment of that credential, don't put them together. All right, number 13, where can soldiers see if we are an approved vendor? So there's two places that they can see that. One, on the Army Cool site, there is an approved vendor list that's updated monthly. Also, when they're doing their search for a credential in Army Ignited, when they pull up that credential, it's going to show all the vendors that relate to that credential and offer that certification or licensure. So that's the best places for a soldier to be able to see what you offer and if you are an approved vendor. Number 14, can our company have multiple people with access to our Army Ignited account? Yes, you can authorize as many people as you'd like to be able to have access to your account. But just remember, if a person leaves or you don't want that person to have access anymore, that needs to be clarified to us so we can help you remove them from the system. You're responsible for removing them from your application, and any individual that you're looking to have access to your application on Army Ignited needs to submit a request for an account through ServiceNow. And number 15, I don't have a cage code. Can you create one for me? We do not oversee the cage code process. You can actually go to www.sam.gov, and that's where you'll go to create your cage code and make sure it's updated. Another quick note about the cage codes. The cage codes expire each year. I know some of you have seen the email traffic from us recently. If you're within 2 weeks of your cage code expiring, go in, update it on the system. If you're not able to update it on the system, which we found some vendors have had that issue, please submit a ServiceNow ticket to the technical team. That way they are aware that you're having cage code issues and they can go and update it manually for you. But please make sure you're staying on top of that. If you're within 2 to 3 weeks of that cage code expiring, go in, update the system, and then again, if you're having issues with it, send a request through the ServiceNow portal for a ticket and send it to the technical team and they will get it updated for you. All right, so a quick recap, some important takeaways for each and every one of you before we go to open it up for questions. Policies and processes are changing. Be patient with us. It's a learning process for us too as we're going through it as well. The certificate of completion template is free for you to use. We're going to send it out to each and every one of you. We'll also send out the template for the itemized price quote if that helps you out as well. Update your cage codes. Make sure that your itemized price quote, make sure it provides all of the required items that are listed on there. FAQs, if you've got more questions or things that you have questions about that you need to ask us, please feel free. Now, again, the email is tagged on the next slide there from us, or most of you have myself or Wendy's direct email. Feel free to email us. We need your success metrics. So if you've got an opportunity, if you see where soldiers are completing your course, and because of that, they're obtaining their certification, and you have that data. We need that data so we can help our team update the faceplate of the Army Cool side. When they get on there and they see this credential, they can look and see these success metrics of, yeah, this is something I should pursue, or you know what, not very many people are getting hired from this. Maybe I should look at another certification. So please send those to us. We need them. And last and not least, no 90-day wait on lower costs for updating applications. We know that's been a big kicker with a lot of our vendors, so we wanted to put that out there for you to make sure that you were aware. If you are lowering the costs or you're adding new items, you are not required to wait that 90 days for the application update. And of course, this time we want to turn the last bit of our training over to each and every one of you. Again, that is our email address there for the Army Credentialing Assistance Team. Before I turn it back over, I think Ms. Sweeney has something she wanted to say to the field, and then we'll go for questions.
Yes, please. Thank you, Russell. Hey, real quick, I want to address the quotes, right? Because we've had a couple of questions about the quotes, and it can be a little confusing. So I want to make sure I put this out to everyone. When we ask for itemization, right? If let's just say the total price of your training is $400, right? That $400 must be listed, right? So on your quote, you say training, $400, whatever the course is, basket weaving 101, $400. The items that you have listed in Army Ignited are zero cost, right? So you put it on your quote as book zero, material zero, and then total cost 400. Okay, I don't want there to be any confusion. We do need you to itemize, but those costs have to be zero. The total cost of your course or exam that is listed in Army Ignited needs to be whatever the total cost is in there. And then you'll have your total cost. And then again, at the bottom, any discounts, you can add those there. Hopefully that helped clarify some of the quote issues. And let me see. The certificate of completion. Now, Russell said, that is, he created that awesome little certificate of completion because we do have some vendors who submit, like it's, they might have a soldier's name, like a blank line, and the soldier is able to write their name in, and then there's a signature. We can't really verify that is you, right? Because sometimes we've had this problem before where soldiers will just copy and paste somebody else's stuff and insert their own name, right? So it's very important that you either use what we give you, like what he's created, or you can always ask us by sending to the box right there. You can ask, is this an okay certificate of completion? Is this acceptable? We still have vendors who are not putting a start and end date in their certificate of completion. I will tell you why it's so important. It is important because we have some soldiers who are trying to submit something from previous dates before we ever paid for that, and that is unacceptable. It has to have all of the information. And Russell, can you go back to that slide where you show the certificate of completion? Okay, so you can see that it has the soldier's name, the course, the actual course name or the exam name, whichever one it is, the actual start and end date, your name, and then whether they completed or failed that course. And then, of course, your signature and the date. That's the information we have to have on a certificate of completion. We've been getting some certificates of completion from the soldier who have said, oh, I passed the course. But then when I ask the vendor says, nope, they never passed that course. That's why it's so important that we are very specific in our certificates of completion. Again, once you have the functionality in the system to do it, you don't have it right now, but once you do, some of these things are not even going to be that important because it's going to come directly from you. And we know that that's the truth, right? So If you don't, if your certificates of completion do not have all this information, please adjust or use what Mr. Russell has in there. Okay, let me see. I did see, we talked about that, the quote. And then is the certificate of completion stating that they passed our training course or they passed their certification exam if we are only a training provider? That's a great question, Rachel. It is only for what they're paying for. So if let's just say you are bundling, right? You have a bundled training and your training, what you provide is basket weaving 101, right? You provided basket weaving 101, and then you gave a book, a voucher, and everything for free. Totally fine. All we are looking for at that point is the certificate of completion for the basket weaving 101 training that you provided. The other items are free. It is great if they did pass, but that is not what we're tracking. We're only tracking what we paid for training. Does that make sense, Rachel? We do get those questions too, so I'm glad you brought that up. That's a great one.
Miss Sophia, this is Miss
Yeah.
Gentry. I think with CompTIA though, they just do exams, so maybe address that piece.
Right. Soldiers are always going to send us this. The CompTIA is a different item where the soldiers will provide their certificate of completion, and it is going to be with a picture and their stats. So that we accept as well. So, right. There are going to be times where even when we have the functionality in the system that you will not be able to provide. Well, again, that's only for basically 2 vendors that the soldier will be sending in those certificates of completion. Okay, any other questions regarding Adam? Go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why I asked that question earlier about doing reporting versus certificate of completion is when we read through the MOA, we didn't actually see anything about issuing a certificate directly to the service member, just that verification of completion had to be submitted to the CA, to Army Credential Assistance. And some of our courses don't come with a certificate. So we were having to build a process, but we have reporting that we were utilizing to send to your office. Hey, there's a verification of completion. Here's all the elements that you need. But we didn't see that as a requirement that a certificate had to be issued to the service member directly.
No.
So is that required, or
no.
Can it be information that just goes to you?
No, you are correct. It can be an email with all of that information as long as it came from you, right? You can put the soldier's name, you can CC that box, and that would be okay. Mr. Gray created that certificate of completion for you to use in those types of situations. But if you have all of that information and it is still added on an email, that is okay too.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
It just has to have all that info, because if it doesn't have your signature block or your signature came from you, we don't have a way to verify. We have to be able to verify.
But if it comes directly to you from our email, is that verification, or do you need
Yeah. No,
okay.
that would be verification, but have a signature block in the bottom. And again,
so you want an e-signature verifying the information?
If you're able to do that,
something.
As long as you have your signature block on the bottom, who you are, stating that this person has passed that course or failed that course, that would be fine. And the soldier can upload that email into their certificate, into their account.
Okay, perfect. Got it. Thank you.
No problem. So exam voucher vendor is not required to submit a certificate of completion. So Kathy, do you only provide training? Okay, well, let me see. We have training and we also offer. So if you are adding into your application, let's just say you're adding CompTIA A+1 or A plus whatever, A plus, right? You're offering that alone, you're going to be required to provide that certificate of completion, or that soldier has to upload that certificate of completion. Somewhere we have to get that exam, what you call it, completion, right? They should, depending on what it is. Kathy, what do you provide?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
They can purchase an individual, for example, on A+ certification, we can only include one voucher with the training,
Right.
so they have to buy the second voucher ad hoc.
Mm-hmm.
So they order the second voucher, we send it to them, but we don't know when they use it or if they passed or not. Now the soldier will receive, when they take the exam, the soldier will receive a you passed or you failed with, a description of how they did by objective. They can submit that as their certificate, as their proof of completion to you that they've actually used the voucher. But unless we ask them to report back to us, we have no way of knowing. Their results are their confidential information, and they can only release it if we ask them to. We can't require it.
Right, I see what you're saying. Yeah, if you're offering CompTIA vouchers, obviously, yes, we would get that from the soldier. They have to give it to us. So I understand what you're saying. But if it was just training and you added a exam voucher with it as a free item, you would not be required to provide that. You would just be required to provide the certificate of completion for the training.
Right, and that's what we've been doing. I just wanted to make sure that was correct.
Oh yeah, you're fine.
Okay.
And I know there was Chris Fowler has some information he wanted to clarify as well for an item. Chris, did you want to address that here?
Sophia, can you hear me?
Yes.
Are you talking about the bundling?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm one of the processors. It's a pleasure to be on this with you guys this morning. But so one of the things that we've been talking about with the bundling, and in particular with the multiples exams, if a vendor wants to provide a bundled option, let's just say, for example, CompTIA A+, CompTIA Network Plus, CompTIA Security Plus. Those three trainings can be in one bundle, as long as the price is for one of those and the other two are listed at $0. For the exams for those, only one of those can be in there. So the most expensive of those would probably be the Security Plus at $274 or something like that. So you can have a bundle. Let's just say it's CompTIA A Plus, Security Plus, Network Plus. All three trainings for that credential are in that one bundle, and one exam for the Security Plus would be in that bundle. We can process that. That's all I got, Sophia.
Thank you. Right. I just want to make some clarification because I know Mr. Gray said the credential, and he's absolutely correct. We only have one credential per course that you're offering, right? But if the training is in there, those are just free type of trainings that are in there, that's fine. As long as there's only one credential listed in that offering. Thank you, Chris. Okay, I'm sorry. Back to you. Back to you, Russell.
No problem. And before we end today, I just want to throw a caveat out there that you guys, each and every one of you see how hard this team works and how we all work well together. And I appreciate every one of them covering back for me on a lot of the questions and everything that have come in. This is an everyday occurrence. Even though we're separated geographically, this team works seamlessly. So I appreciate every one of you guys that are on here today helping me with this. With that being said, do we have any other vendor questions out there right now for us? Second alibis?
Wait, one question. Maybe I missed it. Is the email on the screen now where we should send the certificate? Thank you. I'm glad you asked that. Yes, they do. You can CC us, right? CC that CA email box, but still send it directly to the soldier. Does that make sense, Mr. Mata? Okay, and then Mark had a question.
Yeah, I didn't see if it got answered. But are we still working on getting a queue where we can see the soldiers who have applied to use the CA for our training?
So eventually, that is the goal, to have a queue just for the vendors, right? That way, on the tuition assistance side, vendors get to see all the soldiers they enroll that way. On the CA side, we will have an actual queue for all vendors. So right now, there is no queue, but you will eventually be able to see, once our team processes a case and moves it over to finance, that is when they will appear in your queue, right? So then you know for sure that this soldier right here is good to get paid for. They will eventually get paid for, but you will start seeing them. So that also helps with, you see a soldier on there like, that person never requested a seat from me. I don't have the space. And at that point, you can address it and so forth. But you will eventually get that queue. When you do get that queue, you'll also have the ability to upload their certificate of completion. Does that help you, Mark?
That's perfect, amazing. And then the last thing, and I promise I'll let you guys go. I love you guys, by the way. I know this has been I actually was witnessed the pilot program at Fort Hood when it first came about, and you guys have got a tough task, and I just thank you for all the hard work, because this is probably to me, this is the greatest thing that has happened to soldiers since the GI Bill inception. So really thank you guys for what you do. But the last question I have is, are we ever going to move to a direct deposit process, or is it going to stay with the credit card over the phone scenario?
That's a great question. So Mark, yes, maybe. I'm not going to say next year, but down the line, that is a possibility. It's all like, so there's all of these, backlog of things we want to get done. And that one will take, for one, it takes a lot to get that in the system. But yeah, eventually that is the goal, to get it to be, a different process than what it is today. But not yet. But yeah, and as far as the vendor queue, that is coming up. We hope, hopefully next year. I don't know. I can't even tell you exactly when next year, but we are hoping next year for sure that you all get your own queue to see all that. But hey, we really appreciate all that you all do. There's a lot of patience that you all have with us, so really appreciate that. This program is successful because you all are helping with that success. We got an outstanding team that is busting their butts to get things done. So really appreciate everybody on this call for all that you do. Back to you, Russell. Thank you.
All right. And do we have any other questions out there? We've got about 16 minutes left. So does anyone else have any other questions? If not, we're going to give you 16 minutes back of your morning. So you can go get yourself some breakfast, a cup of coffee. And if you want to come back and join us again at 1300 Eastern Standard Time, you are more than welcome to. If not, tell your friends and tell them they should probably join us. All right. Well, thank each and every one of you. Again, we're going to put this on YouTube, and we'll send out the link to everybody so they have it and you can use it as you guys need to. Send it out to your counterparts that work with you who may not have been able to join this training. If you are able to join us again at 1300, it'll be some of the similar questions, but you're more than welcome to join us. So thank each and every one of you. Sophia, team, thank you for joining us this morning and for the help. And with that being said, we'll see each and every one of you around the block. Thanks again for what you do.
Thank you, Russell. Wendy, great job, guys.